there we go. Let me just bring this up. Hello, everyone. So I'm just going to bring up a set of slides, which hopefully everyone can see. Cool. Hello, everyone, and thank you for those that have turned on your video camera as well. It's so cool to see faces, even virtually. And I think it's good evening for most people, but good afternoon, and also I think good morning for some people. I can see a couple of the Iris guys from South Africa on the call, so good morning to some of you. Now, if this is your first product talks, and I saw a few first timers register for today's talk, this is a product management meetup that has been running since 2007 in Sydney. Since then, we've expanded to a couple of other cities, including Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth, in New Zealand as well, in Auckland and Wellington, Singapore, Malaysia, South Africa, just to name a few cities and countries. And unfortunately, through COVID, we've been able to run this sort of virtually and meet quite a few different people that are not sort of anchored to locations. But having said that, if you're based out of Wellington or Auckland, I believe our product talks in those cities have actually gone back to physical meetups. So if you're interested to attend them, check them out on meetup.com. Now, the purpose of Product Talks is to create a home for people that love product management, and it's somewhere that we can meet and learn and have fun and meet like-minded people. But a couple of quick sort of health checks before we get started. Now, I suspect many people have been using Zoom already, so it's probably not going to be new for most. But we've set this up as a meeting style today. So if you've got any questions throughout the talk, just press the chat function on the bottom of your Zoom window, on the top of your Zoom window. You can use the chat function to make comments, talk to other people on the webinar as well. If you do want to talk or respond to a question, raise your hand. But if you need any sort of technical help, ask either Geeta or myself. So the ones with the from Product Talks at the end of our name, we'll look to try and help you as well. We want the webinar to be interactive. We want cool questions and robust discussions to be thrown at Franco. So do sort of think of those questions along the way. It is one to get everybody involved in. So ask the question if one comes to mind. But before we sort of get into the details, Product Talks is organized by a team at BrainMates. So for those of you that was recently at leading the product conference, you'll know the BrainMates team, and they've been championing product management since 2004. BrainMate's purpose is to help people and companies build better products to build better worlds. So currently BrainMates do this through a number of channels. So through the training sort of concept, the community concept, as well as the consulting concept. So community is ones like this, events like this. It's all about building a collaborative, fun environment and a product community so you can meet and share experiences, help each other, network, and enjoy themselves. Geeta and I are volunteers, so if you look to wanting to help as part of it, let us know. We're always looking for volunteers as well as speakers to join the scene. Around training, so BrainMates run regular training courses to help people get into product management and get better at their jobs. When it comes to consulting, they also work directly with companies to help them solve their product management problems so that you can make more successful products and companies. So for those training courses, there's actually a couple coming up. So the Essentials of Product Management is the week after next. It's an online course, 3 days. Around in-depth interactive program. So for those that are interested in that, and then throughout July and August, the BrainMates team is running an Accelerating into Product Leadership course as well. It's 6 sort of 4-hour sessions across 6 weeks, which looks really cool as well for those that are interested around the product leadership aspect of it. But without further ado, let's talk about today. So today we have Franco, and Franco is here to talk about, I think, one of my favorite topics in product management and how we bridge the vision, the OKR, and the roadmap. And, when Franco and I, as well as Gita, were chatting through the topics, thinking about questions and answers like, reach this much money by end of this quarter, or here's a list of features, and being the Uber of something, or let's adopt the Spotify model to actually do this, as well as the company vision statement. It resonated with me so well, and so interested to hear from Franco in terms of his thoughts around this area. He has more than 8 years of experience leading the digital team. I think we're really lucky to have him here in Sydney. Moved over to Sydney last year, heading up the product and user experience team at an Australian social startup, Like Family. Before coming to Sydney, he worked at some of the largest tech travel companies in Latino America, and ran different teams, including marketing and growth teams on e-commerce, which raised a lot of money and grew the employee numbers. But I'm not going to steal the thunder. I'm going to hand over to Franco, and then we'll loop back for a bit of a Q&A afterwards. So over to you, Franco.
Thank you very much. Let me share my screen. All right. Cool. Yeah, are you seeing my screen now? Yeah, perfect. Well, thanks for the introduction. And sorry in advance for my English. I'm from Argentina and I'm also nervous, so that won't help. And the idea today was to talk about mistakes and frameworks regarding product strategy. Definitely one of my favorite topics, and one of the things I think are more complex about product management. We're all learners in this regard. So you talked about me. I was going to walk through some of my experience just to go through different examples that I'll be sharing with you. I started at Avenida, was an e-commerce site. We raised more than $50 million in 1 year, was a record in the country. And after 3 years, the company went broke. So as you can imagine, was a fun roller coaster from 20 to 200 to arriving one day to get the news that we were all fired because the company was closing. Then I joined Despegar, biggest online travel company in Latin America. The company was going through its initial public offering, the IPO. So we were all really focused. So the strategy was basically reaching the IPO. Unfortunately, it wasn't the best time. Stock went from $30 to around 15, and then COVID hit. So it got down to around $6. Now it's getting back a little bit. I then joined Almundo as the head of product. I was leading a pretty big team. It was quite complex because we have a lot of commercial insights from a lot of teams like flights, packages, hotels, marketing, after sales. And the company was also being acquired by a Brazilian company, CVC. So that was also a mess, really hard to align the strategy among the teams, and also going in the middle of an acquisition that was making things harder, and not to speak of COVID, that basically our sales went to zero. And finally, last year in April, I was lucky to join Like Family. The original idea was that I was going to be in Sydney by the middle of April, but then the borders were closed. So I have to work remotely from Argentina at night for 6-7 months till November, that I finally got to travel here to this beautiful city with my wife and finally meet the team. So what's the agenda for today? My idea is to talk about what is about strategy, how to spot about strategy, what frameworks are there to define a good strategy, and what are my favorites at least, and how we build a process to define the strategy at Almundo and also at Like Family. So very different context. Almundo, an 800 employee company, very commercially driven, against Like Family, startup, working fully remote, 10 people company, everything to still be done. So what is about strategy? Well, let me begin and let me know, hopefully some will come out of this video.
This is where all our work is done. So what are you gonna do with all these underpants that you steal? collecting underpants is just phase 1. Phase 1, collect underpants.
So what's phase 2?
Hey, what's phase 2? Phase 1, we collect underpants. Yeah, but what about phase 2? Well, phase 3 is profit. Get it?
I don't get it.
You see, phase 1, collect underpants. Phase 2, phase 3, profit.
Although the video it's well, for me it's hilarious, but fun and a joke. It's incredible how often this happens in real life, at least in every company I work. It's like phase 1, we will launch in this new city. Phase 2, we'll do profit. So phase 3, we'll make profit. Phase 1, we will relaunch our website. We will launch this new product. We will do this. Phase 2, phase 3 will make money. And why this happens is not because of miscalculation, as Rachel Rumelt said, but strategy is the avoidance of the hard work of crafting a good strategy. And one of the common reasons is the pain or difficult for choice. So figuring out the how, that phase 2, and how this first decision will yield to profit is actually what a strategy is all about. And actually it's the hard part of strategy. Other than that, it's just goals or fluffy words masquerade as a strategy. And when leaders are willing and unwilling or unable to make choices, but strategy is the consequence. So first, inside of this quote by Rumelt in, I think, the best book that it's out there about strategy, that is good strategy, bad strategy, is that strategy is about choices and strategy is about focus. Yeah. So what happens, or what are the elements that let us spot about strategy? Rumelt present us with 4 cues. One is that bad strategy is fluff. So basically, it's a lot of words meaning anything. And he puts the example of an online bank that put as their strategy statement that their fundamental strategy was one of customer-centric intermediation. So basically that they were a bank, or that they were intermediating between customers and assets. There are a lot of strategies around there, like will be the most customer-centric platform in our industry that doesn't get to acknowledge the challenge that they are facing. And that's the second tale to know that strategy is bad. So the failure to face the challenge. For example, in Almundo, one of our challenges and one of our strategy statement was that we needed to scale our sales force exponentially with experts, selling unique experiences to every user. Expert was a great idea. So the idea was to get independent travel agents or people who knew about the destination a lot and give them the tools within our website to sell packages to other users. So let's say that you know how to build a great trip to Israel for Catholic people. So you could grab flights, hotels, activities from Almundo site, bundle that into a package, put some margin on top of that so you could take your own cut of the deal and then sell it to an end user. So for us, that was a great idea. We spent a few months working on that. And when we launched, we realized that, well, we were struggling a lot to get these experts to sign up and start using these new features. So the challenge wasn't that much on basically building the tools, but getting people to use it. And in that failure to face the challenge or to realize where the problem really was, we wasted a lot of time and resources building unnecessary features. Other element of a bad strategy is mistaking goals for a strategy. And this is, I think, the most common. You ask someone, what is our strategy? Well, our strategy is to grow 5% month over month. Well, our strategy is to reach $1 million by the end of the quarter. Well, our strategy is to launch nationwide. And that's not a strategy, that's a nice wish or maybe if it's not a wish, it's something that you can achieve. It's just a goal, but it doesn't tell you anything about how to reach there and how to move towards that goal. And then lastly, bad strategic objectives. So bad strategic objectives can be either a to-do list that is just things to get done, no tied together with no logic, that it's bringing everything together, or what the author called a blue sky objectives. For example, a blue sky objective is something that is too general, too long-term to actually drive any decision. So for Avenida, the e-commerce site that went broke, our objective or our strategy was to be the Amazon of Argentina, to be the everything store. And that actually drove 0 decisions. We didn't know what to do with that. So that's a shallow strategy that doesn't help to inform the business. So let's move to what is a good strategy. I think we can all think about elements of bad strategy in our own companies. I've seen in every company I work, probably contributed to a few. And for a good strategy, we'll see 3 frameworks, how Marty Kagan states it, and then other 2 books. So in Empowered, Marty says that an effective product strategy is essential for enabling ordinary people to create extraordinary products because it focuses and leverages their talents. So again, the focus. And he organized the book in a way that he puts strategy in the middle. So he says, like, the product vision will define what you are trying to create, this future that you want to build. Then the team topology will define how you will structure your team to achieve that. And here the product strategy will help you decide which problems you need to solve in order to achieve that vision. So it will be a link between the vision and then the objectives and the roadmap. And he never speaks about roadmap, but he speaks about this dual track of product discovery and product delivery. I would argue that team topology is also shaped by the product strategy, because when you decide to move forward with a strategy, you align the whole company around it, and part of the company is how you structure the teams. But he put it right in the middle. So you'll have the product strategy, and the product strategy will inform the OKRs and the roadmap and the planning of every quarter or every sprint. So he said that the strategy required 4 things. First, they're willing to make tough choices on what's really important. And here, in my experience, it's more important to clearly define what you are not going to be focused on than what you are. I have seen multiple times that we make a really clear statement on where we are focusing, and next in Almundo, in this period, it happened almost every week. And then the CEO or your director will come and say, like, yeah, now we need to focus on this other thing. And you'll say, like, yeah, but we spoke last week that this is not our focus. Yeah, but it's important. We need to meet our quarterly goals, or we need to increase our sales. So willingness to make tough choices, it's about the choices that you make and also what we won't pursue. I think it's really important to say what we won't pursue in this strategy statement. Then generating and leveraging on insights, and insights could be customer research, data analysis, industry knowledge, stakeholder knowledge, and converting those insights into action. And on top of all that, active management without micromanagement. So active management for Marty would be to empower the teams to tackle the problems that they think are the most important. As a second framework, and one that I have used quite a lot, is the choice cascade that is outlined in Playing to Win. Playing to Win is a book written by Lafley and Martin. Alan Lafley was the CEO of Procter & Gamble, so he knows a little bit on how to structure the strategy for a product. And he says that strategy is a coordinated set of 5 choices. So these 5 choices are what is our winning aspiration? So what is the guiding principle of the enterprise? Simon Sinek will say the golden circle. What is your why? Why you are there? Why that product exists? And then we'll follow to where we will play. So where will we play? It's geographies, product, in which specific domain you will decide to compete. For example, like family, we don't offer the same services as other providers for people living with a disability because we focus on companionship. So for example, our workers do not handle medication, do not do toileting. We are focused on companionship, on social outing, on going for a walk in the beach, and we want to be the best in that space. And we have a clear defined space for where we will play. And that's important. It builds into the focus that we were talking about. Next question will be how you will win in that space. Like, do you have the value proposition, the competitive advantage to be the best in that place with that winning aspiration? If you do, then what capabilities you must be in place, you must have in place, and what management systems are required. So how you will structure the teams, what features you need to build, how you need to invest in marketing. So everything that goes into the team and the company structure to enable that, how we will win and where we will play, and to reach the winning aspiration. And the arrows goes back and forth because this should be an iterative process. If you find that in the where you will play, you cannot win because you don't have a clear value proposition or a competitive advantage over the competition, then you need to pick another place, another playing field to be the best at. And yeah, as the title of the book says, a strategy for Lafley is just a statement of how to win, and he does not acknowledge not winning in your desired market. And that high level in bigger organizations will cascade from a corporate level cascade to strategic group and individual business level. So in Almundo, it was from the C-level directors cascading to business units and then to each particular squads. And lastly, and my favorite book, as I said, the strategy kernel, that it's outlined by Rumelt in Good Strategy, Bad Strategy. He says that basically a great strategy could be defined in 3 steps in this strategic kernel. And that is first a diagnosis that defines or explains the nature of the challenge, what we are tackling, where is the opportunity. And then a guiding policy for dealing with that challenge. And that is an overall approach, choosing to overcome the obstacle, identifying the diagnosis. So we know where the opportunity lies, we know the challenge could be internal, could be external. So the guiding policy will be how we will be tackling that. And then the set of core actions, so the actions at the end will be basically how we will carry out the guiding policy. So what we will do. I like this framework because of its simplicity and how it ties everything together. The cascade of choices, I think sometimes miss the diagnosis step. It's easier to do without research or thinking things through. We can just ask people, where do we think we should play? What our value proposition? But for the strategic kernel, we need to first bring insights, and we'll tie everything to this research or this analysis prior to defining the strategy. So as example, he said that in business, the challenge is usually dealing with change or competition or competition. And the first step would be diagnosis of the structure of the challenge rather than simply naming performance goals. So the insight and the challenge is not growing 10% month over month. It's other thing. It's the specific challenge that we are facing. The second step is how we will deal with that situation to build a competitive advantage. And lastly, basically how we will allocate the resources and what we'll do to tackle that. So how the 3, before going into the examples, how do these frameworks talk to each other, and how we can use them all together, or even other frameworks? These are the ones that I like. So first with the insights, Marty Kagan mentions in this insight step that we could go for quantitative insights, data analysis, what we know about our user, how they are using the site, Google Analytics, Mixpanel, whatever you're using, Tableau. Qualitative research, surveys, interviews, persona, jobs to be done. I love jobs to be done. Use jobs to be done if you're doing research. Then technology. Is there any breakthrough that will enable a different competitive advantage? For example, I don't know, every company that enable video calls, for example, in like family, we launched video activities. So people isolated, living with a disability that were unable to go outside with their social worker could now use a video call to just talk to someone, share things, share a cook recipe, do exercise together. So Zoom, for example, enable opportunities that weren't there before. And industry knowledge, knowing the industry you're part of and how the trends are moving and where opportunities lie, all makes into the insight. Then you process and you digest that into the set of choices or the guiding policy, and you focus on the how, the where, which structure do you need. For example, Gibson Biddle talks about the light, hard to copy, margin enhancing features. He was the ex-CPO of Netflix, and he talks about strategy in terms of these three parameters. So like you need to find things that will delight your users, that your competition won't be able to copy, but that will also bring you money. And that's how you build a competitive advantage over time. And that should be all, of course, based on insights. You could use the strategy canvas outlined in the book, Blue Ocean Strategy. So there are a lot of ways to use those insights into value propositions. And finally, how you will do something about it, basically, how you will act on that guiding policy. OKRs, how you will prioritize your roadmap using RISE, the kernel model, outcome-driven innovation, or opportunity solution tree to find new opportunities or to broaden your ideas or the solutions you are thinking about. And then the actions go back to the insights. So, for example, I don't agree with Marty Kagan that a strategy should be between 2 to 5 years plan. I think you can build a strategy based on what you know now, start acting on that, and maybe after 2 quarters and taking actions on your guiding policy, you'll figure out that, well, maybe you need to target a different segment, or maybe the where to win wasn't the right approach, or that you need to move to a different market, and that's fine. The strategy, I think, should be a living organism, always getting feedback, this feedback loop from the actions you're taking. Let me share with you a short video of Jeff Bezos to see if you can spot some of the elements of a great strategy. This video is from 1997, so he had created Amazon 3 years ago.
Hi there, who are you?
I'm Jeff Bezos.
And what is your claim to fame?
I'm the founder of Amazon.com.
Where did you get an idea for Amazon.com?
Well, 3 years ago, I was in New York City working for a quantitative hedge fund when I came across the startling statistic that web usage was growing at 2,300% a year. So I decided I would try and find a business plan that made sense in the context of that growth. And I picked books as the first best product to sell online, after making a list of like 20 different products that you might be able to sell. And books were great as the first best because books are incredibly unusual in one respect, and that is that there are more items in the book category than there are items in any other category by far. Music is number 2. There are about 200,000 active music CDs at any given time. But in the book space, there are more than 3 million different books worldwide active and in print at any given time across all languages. More than 1.5 million in English alone. So when you have that many items, you can literally build a store online that couldn't exist any other way. And that's important.
All right. So I think it's genius how the everything store started with books, and he started talking about insights. Like internet is growing, the industry is growing. This is enabling opportunities that weren't there before. And I will create a value proposition and a competitive advantage in a category where physical stores cannot compete, cannot cope with me. And that's why he picked books. And this is 3 years after the creation of Amazon, and he still is talking about books and how it is impossible to handle that many books in a physical store, and that will be a competitive advantage that nobody will be able to deal with. And then he built the flywheel. This is pretty famous for Amazon. That is how this ties together, how books was just the tipping point to start growing and expanding. So the overall strategy for Amazon will be, we'll start with the customer experience. We'll build this online store with more books than any physical store in the world, because internet is now allowing to do that. They'll bring traffic. The traffic will bring the sellers, because they will want to be where the customers are, and they'll start to bring a broadened selection of articles, and that will improve the customer experience, that will increase the traffic, and the wheel will keep spinning. Over time, all this traffic and sales will allow us to build a lower cost structure, and that will allow us to lower the price, so we'll be also better in pricing, and we'll improve the customer experience. So it's a wheel that keeps spinning, and I think made Amazon what it is today.
Hi there, who are you?
All right, are we good so far? Cool. So how we did this at Almundo, this is around 3 years ago, and we built this strategy process in a 3-step process. The difficult thing here was to align more than 20 teams. I was handling a team of at least 10 teams with several product managers, the UX team, but we also have our commercial counterparts, like the director of flights, hotels, packages. We had people in sales and customer support. So an 800 people company was pretty hard to bring alignment. So we started the process by defining the North Star. I gathered with the directors, told them a little bit about the framework and how we needed them to present a clear idea based on insights and what choices they were making to guide our actions. And then we would cascade that down into every level. So the directors gather before the end of each quarter. They would revise the strategy, and then they'll do a presentation for almost the whole company. In the photo that you're seeing, that's almost the entire product, UX, and some IT leaders in the room. And the presentation would end with a question and answer session to clarify any uncertainty. So transparency is key for autonomous and agile teams. So strategy shouldn't be a hidden thing, should be in the open, and everything should have a clear view on what we are tackling. So for us at that time, as I said, we were going through being acquired by CVC. And this was an article that I think outlines our strategy pretty good, the company level one, in Skift, that says that more important, the Almundo acquisition will provide CVC with the omni-channel sales platform for the company that the company has been developing for years. Almundo CEO, Juan Pablo Lafos, told Skift that Almundo is a key piece in this transformation of CVC to become more digitally focused, and the two companies are highly complementary. So basically, what did the rest of the team had to do? We had to support this acquisition and try to build the most flexible platform possible to enable CVC to use Almundo as their online platform, like a white label. Just to give you a scope, CVC is the biggest offline travel company in Brazil. There are more CVC stores, physical stores in Brazil than McDonald's stores. So it's huge, like 1,000 stores. In every suburb, in every city, you have dozens of CVC stores. But the online purchases for that company were representing less than 5% of total sales. So fully offline player buying a purely online player to use our platform as their online site. the integration in the backend was a nightmare, and that was mainly our focus. So insights for Almundo to pursue that acquisition and to position ourselves to be acquired was that online margins were narrowing without airlines improving the online experience. We have new competition from meta search engines like Kayak or, well, there are many around the world, and especially from Google Flights and hotels. If Google is competing with you, it's a big problem. And we knew that traditional smaller agencies were lacking the resources to build their online presence. So we're talking about CVC, huge company, could invest hundreds of millions of dollars to be their own site, but there are hundreds of small offline travel companies. There are traditional companies that don't have the resources to hire 10 developers or 50 developers, start building a platform. So the white label or franchising idea was a strong insight that we were trying to pursue. And that full online players on the other side lack the flexibility for LATAM market. For example, in Peru and in Brazil, a lot of people pay cash. Not everyone, also in Argentina, not everyone has a credit card. So being a fully online player makes you miss some of the market where you're working on. What were the guiding policies? So we'll try to expand offline presence in key markets. We will add resources to the expert team to develop the online support needed for offline channels. So as I said, that expert was a failure because we were not getting independent tourist agents to sell our products. It was a hit in the sense that we could use the same features for offline companies. So we could offer our platform as a white label and use these features that we developed for expert for companies. So you could use Almundo platform on top of your sales platform, and then decide what margin you wanted to take on top of our price. And then grew connection to provider to become a more flexible platform. If we didn't have a connection with Qantas and CVC was selling Qantas flight, then that wouldn't work. So we needed to mimic every connection to every provider that CVC has to allow a more smooth integration between the two companies. So what we did was for CVC and also for Almundo, we enhanced the franchise model and expand that specific team. We added some sales capabilities to expert, adding extra margin for companies, created a budgeting tool to create better packages. We cover integration with the top hotels and flight providers, and we integrate the customer support backend with the franchises. So all these decisions that were part of the strategy were part of the cost of the acquisition, and it was pretty good. Sometimes it acquires not the best choice. In this case, was something that the company was pursuing, so it was a pretty good outcome. The sale was from around $80 million, so that was pretty good. And also it was by the end of 2019, so that was another hit because in 2020 it wasn't the best year to be in travel. What we did with that strategic decision then, we do a full day workshop at the business level. So this would be my team. So all the product teams, flights, packages, hotels, trains, activities, basically we will continue on a full day workshop to try to align our backlogs and OKRs with the company level strategy. So we would start the day reviewing some framework just to get the idea flowing. So in the morning, I would do a presentation about strategy Canva, user story mapping, business model Canva, opportunity solution 3, behavioral economics, decision-making frameworks. So we'll talk about something just to get outside the box and start thinking on ideas that we could pursue that quarter. Second, based on the insight that we knew and the company level presentation, we'll try to create a draft each team of their OKRs and backlog, how their objectives and key results would be aligned with the company ones, and what we can add to the backlog, what themes, what problems, what challenges. I'm not talking about features. I'm not talking about action items. I'm talking about big themes, epics in Jira that we would pursue to support that company level decision. And finally, we do a work cafe methodology. So this is quite a straightforward methodology. The idea is to go around the table to share ideas. So for example, as you can see on the bottom right, in round number 1, hotels team would get together with marketing, package team would get together with after sales, cross-commerce, that cross-commerce was the homepage and the checkout, will get together with assisted sales, and payments will get together with flights. We would allow 20 minutes to just share thoughts, share roadmap. For example, checkout was a team with high interdependence with every other team, the same marketing or after sales. So this was a really, really good opportunity and necessary step to check that we were all aligned in the interdependencies that we had, and also to spark ideas that other teams could have about how to reach our goals. And finally, and last step, we would have another full day outing where we would show the end result. So this is actually, I changed a little bit the numbers and the names of the epics, but exactly like this was the end result of these meetings. So we would have, each team would have a backlog that we will build in a Google presentation, and that was on purpose. First to share it, and then to keep it flexible. So the idea was that the backlog is not carved on stone. So having it on a Google presentation allows you to delete a square, to move it, to change it a little bit. So it's not that we were not saying when something didn't get done, but that the backlog was something to be changed as we learn and iterate sprint after sprint. And then the OKRs. And that was also an interesting thing. We had the OKRs shared on one spreadsheet. There were the OKRs of the whole company, at least of every product team. And that was shared across almost the whole organization. So more than 100 people had access to this spreadsheet. So that was full transparency. Everyone knew how we were doing, what we were aiming at. And the good thing is that if you see a team that was completely misaligned with what you were working, let's say that I was working flights and my OKR was conversion rate, and I go into that spreadsheet and I see that marketing OKR is bringing traffic and number of sessions, then I know for sure that they will bring pretty shitty traffic to the site, and that will mess with my conversion rate. So this forced those discussions that were quite healthy in aligning every team. And finally, as the quarter begins, what we did was we would share the strategy in a leadership meeting to bring alignment, celebrate achievements, share business updates, and also we would see the result, the OKRs of the previous quarter, and then present these two screenshots that you were seeing. So each team roadmap and the OKRs. So summing up for Almundo, the company strategy and goals are clearly defined and shared within the organization, starting with the directors, with the C-level, and cascading down into each business unit. Then business unit would use that strategic choice cascade to align their choices with the upper level strategy. We'd use the work cafe methodology to incentivize backlog discussion and cross-pollinate ideas and insights. Each team will then prioritize and aligns with their main stakeholders, their quarterly roadmaps and the OKRs, and the process outcome. So the final result, along with previous quarter results, will be shared on a leadership team full day meeting. That was the process. We have many iterations through that, crafting how to write good OKRs, how to build better roadmaps, and also how to work together. But I think at the end we were making a pretty good progress, and everyone at least was quite aligned and and knew what everyone else was working on. Needed a little water. So last case study, like family. So completely different environment. Like family for me was a huge change from managing a 60 people team to being part of a 10 people company. I was again excited to be at a product manager role, planning the sprints, testing the tickets. I haven't done that in a while. And I was also working from 8 p.m. to 5 in the morning. So that also made things more difficult. As you can imagine, all this process in Almundo basically wouldn't work because I wasn't there. So we needed to do everything remote. So what we did is basically, well, the number one shouldn't be a number one, but to kick off the company discussion, I sent a survey to almost everyone in the company, asking part of the questions that we saw in the Playing to Win framework. So I asked, what was Conquer Heroes? Like family was called Conquer Heroes at the moment. We were going through a rebrand. Winning aspiration. What's the purpose of the company? What is our goal? Where we will play? Where will we compete? Which is the customer? Which are our categories? How we can win there? Do we have a unique value proposition? Which are the three main needs that we are solving for our users? So that was small building into the insight. I want to know, I was just 1 month into the company. I wanted to know what we knew about our customer problems, what insight do we had, and how we can build on that to build that competitive advantage. And then what are the three main competitors and which are the main opportunities problems that we were currently having. Then we went to a really sophisticated software. Basically, I pasted everything on a Google spreadsheet and a Google presentation, and I pasted some little Conquer Heroes icons, and we moved them around to both. I didn't use Miro back then. I'm using Miro a lot more now. It would have been a better tool choice than Google presentation. But basically, what we did was that I grabbed all the answers. I put one question for one slide for each question and everything that we have said, and we try to bring alignment. So we voted on, for example, for the winning aspiration, which sentence or which winning aspiration we thought was the best one. And then we aligned everything in a summary of our choices. I'm for privacy reasons, not showing them all, but for example, we said like, okay, winning aspiration is to win, to gain national reach. We were planning on launching on Melbourne in October. We launched it in Brisbane 2 months ago. So we're still working on that. Where to play, as I said, companionship, how to win, our heroes care. That from what I said before in this talk, that our heroes care is not something that we can measure. It goes more into the fluff element of a bad strategy because it's ill-defined. The main need for our users is the need for social support. We already know that, but it builds into our decision of playing in companionship, and then some opportunities, for example, the customer journey. The problem we had here was that nothing was unanimous. So there were a few competing visions of these choices, and they were pretty misaligned. So we try to focus that using the strategic value proposition that it's defined by Geoffrey Moore in Crossing the Chasm. It's more a marketing book, but I really recommend it. And he says that you need to have a really clear value proposition, a really focused one to expand as a startup as you're crossing the chasm, so moving from early uses of your product to mainstream product. So as you're growing into hyper growth or exponential growth, and the structure of building that value proposition is for your target customer who needs something. Our product is that has this key benefit that unlike our competitors, we blah, blah, blah. So we said like, okay, let's try to fill this guideline and see if we are aligned. And probably I got one very different strategic proposition from each team member. Here are two, just to show how different they were. But one was, and these are literally what we wrote. So for parents who are looking for a buddy and a mentor, Home Care Heroes is a disability organization community, really easy to use to find heroes. Unlike Higher Up, our product is about building communities, not just transactions. So on the other side, we had for students who are looking for a first part-time job and to build up their skills, we are a perfect job opportunity that allows her to build up skills and add something to her resume and learn new skills in caring for people. And like Mabel, she doesn't need as much qualification to get the job. So one statement was focused on the worker and a student, and the other was focused on a parent of people with disability who are looking for a buddy or a mentor. Quite different, and it's hard to continue the exercise of finding a strategy if you're that misaligned, because you first need that overall alignment in the company to then cascade that into a roadmap or objectives and key results. So what we did is we moved to the strategic kernel. So like, let's take a step back. Let's start with the insights. Maybe if we share insights and if we gather, if we get to a common agreement on what the challenge is, then we can build a guiding policy and build a new strategy that everyone can get on board. So into the insights, we analyze the data to identify the key current users of our site. And then with those, we interview around 10 people. We run job to be done interviews. With those insights, we built a story map. And we also looked into industry knowledge. For example, the NDIS quarterly reports, how the NDIS participants were growing by age, by disability, by state. And we also had a few learnings from the Melbourne launch and our rebrand that we could use to decide which path to pursue. So in terms of strategic choices or our guiding policy, we decided that based on the insights, we needed to improve the positioning to our key persona and to talk to their job to be done. That wasn't, our homepage was too generic. We decided that we needed to highlight the onboarding process for workers and how we have a hands-on customer support team, because we found out that for that key persona was vital to know that the workers were being screened and that there were people they could trust and rely. And also that if they needed to pick up the phone for anything, there will be someone on the other line, on the other side that cared and that would answer that call. So we try to show that more on the homepage and on the onboarding process. We focus on partnerships instead of low return over investment brand marketing campaigns. That was due to some findings that we were finding a hard time making broad marketing campaigns successful. We compete on a niche, and it's better to have a guerrilla marketing strategy that just appealing to a broad audience, because most people do not need our service. And then we decided to go for deeper penetration instead of nationwide expansion. And as I said at 2 slides earlier, one of the most voted where to play or how to win, actually the winning aspiration thing was going nationwide. And after looking at the insight, we realized that that was not the right strategy, that we should go for deeper penetration in the East Coast. And that's where we are right now. So in terms of actions, we relaunched the homepage. We improved the workers profile. We built capabilities for the partnership teams. And we are trying each month to improve and to act on that guiding policy. So as you can see, and now we don't speak about affordable, we say like build lasting companionship. We have a search bar to search for carers before having to sign up. We show photos to build trust. We show how it works instead of what is a hero. Now it's obvious that our workers are workers and we don't have that confusing words on the homepage, and then a huge section showing how you can trust our carriers and the process they go before being activated on our platform. So summing this other process, we started with the choice cascade to gather everyone's thoughts on the strategic positioning. And we tried to reach consensus by dot voting and summarizing the choices into a strategic statement, but that failed basically. The challenge and the competitive advantage was not clear. So we went back to the insight, to analyzing the data and seeing if we could find a better path, better strategic path to build that competitive advantage. And we use customer data and those insights to formulate a new guiding policy. And after the guiding policy, the action and our OKRs and backlog for the following quarters emerge from those insights. And we're using the same format as show you with Almundo. So a PowerPoint or just themes-based backlog, and for the OKRs, a share spreadsheet that everyone in the company can see and comment on. Thanks. Any questions?
Thank you so much, Franco. I really love the stories and the learning, the failure, as well as the success. And thanks for sharing the processes that you've worked through as well. But to have South Park, Marty Kagan, and quotes around jobs to be done and the strategies, I think that was gold. So thank you so much. We do have
thank you for having me.
We do have a few questions, so I might get Gita to unmute those that have questions so they can ask you directly.
Yeah. I have Richard and Joyce. Wagner unfortunately just had to drop off from because he's joining us from Berlin. But Richard, please go ahead.
Hi Franco, Richard from sunny Durban in South Africa. Thanks for that presentation. It was extremely insightful. I just had one question, which I think you've answered towards the end of your case studies, was the insights and the data you get from the research. Obviously, that's extremely important for a strategy statement. Is there a chance that you can actually define a strategy without research, without chatting to your customers and getting data insights?
I don't think so. I think that talking to your customers and getting outside of the business is key to finding the right strategy. But I wouldn't be paralyzed till we run. For example, we are now running some jobs to be done interviews. It takes a lot of time to recruit people, to interview people, especially to synthesize the learnings and the insight from the interviews. So I would start working, and then, as I said, keep it flexible and just improve it as new insights come through the flow. So I think that almost always stakeholders that are already working in the company know a lot about the industry and where to go and how to approach things. So looking for what others are doing stakeholder interviews to learn what the founders or other people in the industry know. And data analysis, as I said, I work in a personalization team in Despegar, so I'm really data driven. I think there's a lot of things to discover in finding activation rates, cohorts, which behaviors are actually activating the best kind of customers. All that builds into the insight that can inform then the guiding policy. But yes, for me, the user research and the interviews tackle the unknown, so the things that I don't even know that I don't know, and that's where it gets really insightful. You're through an interview, maybe bored, thinking that you're not getting anything, and then just one line, it's like, oh, this is gold. Like, I never thought about this, and it changed how you were seeing a part of the process. So yeah, I do think it's critical, but I think it plays along with all the other data points. Yeah,
that's great. Thanks. It's just to go back to people in my team or company-wide who haven't really bought into the whole client research thing. That's good. Thank you for the feedback.
Always fine. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. And do we have another question?
Yeah, we have Joyce. If you just unmute yourself and.
Yeah, I don't know if you're gonna be able to answer me. I think this is more like just out of curiosity. Jeff
I'll
Bezos,
try.
he had a lot knowledge about industry, I guess he was saying. It's a little bit hard to know, but just like my question is, do you know where he found this information from? It was like based on like some specialists or users, like where will be, like I'm a UX designer, so always gonna go like to the user.
Yeah.
Like in your opinion, would that be better, like to go after a specialist or a user?
I think that, and probably that's why I prefer job to be done to personas or any other user research. It's like when they say this phrase that if Ford had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. I think that when the innovation is really disruptive, like it was Amazon, it's not about asking people, like if you do research and you ask like, hey, would you look in a bookstore? You'll never get those insights. But if you go to the deeper job of having everything at hand, or the simplifying the experience, or going through from bookstore to bookstore to find the book that you are looking for, then you could get those insights from a user. But from Jeff Bezos' interview, it feels like it was more industry and tech driven. Like he found this incredible exponential growth of the internet, and it almost feels like he started thinking like, what can I do about it? Like, what is something so complex that can only be solved with an online store? And that's why he go for books. It's nothing fancy about books, so he picked it just because of the complexity and the recurrency of the purchase behind purchasing a book, and he built everything from that. So I would say it was more like a technology breakthrough, sorry, than user research. But that's my guessing. I was 10 years old in the 97, so I wouldn't know.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you so much. I think we might wrap up here. We've gone a few minutes over, but thanks everybody for staying on. Thank you so much, Franco. We will share a recording of this on the meetup page, so we'll make sure to check back. A couple of other things, Franco has actually shared a bunch of resources on the meetup page, so including all the books that he mentioned, as well as the artifacts to look up on. So if you're interested to read up on any of the books, any of the concepts, Franco has actually quite kindly shared all those resources on the page as well. And for those that are in the market looking for a product related role, go over to the Brainmates website as well. There's quite a few roles open around Australia if you're looking for a change, or if you're looking to get into product management. Thank you again, Franco, and thank you, Gita, to co-host today's session. Keep an eye out. We'll be running another meetup in July and hope to see you there.
All right. Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.